Well, I'm doing my John Oliver. Welcome, 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 welcome. All right. I'm doing my John.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly.
Okay, cool. Good deal. Hello, everybody. This is GoGo Talks, brought to you by GoGo Ticks. And today we are on with Anshia Bryceland Crooms, the one and only amazing founder of Bryceland Entertainment. So, what is it? Bryceland Entertainment and Creative now?
So it's Bryceland Entertainment. I can
Okay.
talk about specializing and blah 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 blah.
Gotcha. Okay. What's up, Mr. Drew? Everybody that's on Instagram, if you want to see the other side, what's up, Sambo? And if you want to see the other side of the conversation, Shia is much better looking than I am. So if you want to come over to gogotix.co, then you can, you can see the other side of the conversation. All right. So Shia, how are you today?
I'm good, Malachi. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm great. Fabulous. No complaints at all. Why don't you give us, the history of your life in music and entertainment and how you got started in this crazy business?
Sure. First, I want to say thank you for having me. It's been a blessing to know you, man, and I'm praying for all of us to get through this time. And
before I forget, I really want to thank you for how much you promoted this. Like you probably promoted this more than anybody else that's been on. I mean, other people have promoted it as well, but I don't want to, shit on anybody else. But you really went hard, and I really appreciate that.
Oh yeah.
And
It's a good platform, but hey, everybody, my name is Anshia Bryceland Crooms. I started a company called Bryceland Entertainment 13 years ago, and we basically specialize in talent booking, talent buying, and event programming. I work with such artists such as Eric Roberson, Maimouna Youssef, aka Fresh, PJ Morton. We handle his international booking. The Moors, Kevin Ross, and we produce a music festival called the MAC Festival in East Orange, New Jersey. I'm a Bowie State alum. I'm a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I love music, and I reside in the DMV area. So that's a little bit about me.
Okay. Well, let's go a little bit slower. So how did you? Where are you from originally? Are you originally from the DMV?
Yes, I'm actually from the Eastern Shore of Maryland.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm from Annapolis, so we, not too far.
Yes.
Okay, Cambridge or?
No, so I was born in Salisbury. I lived there until I was 10 years old, and then my parents moved to a small town called Pocomoke, Maryland. And so that's where I actually went to high school. I played basketball there and had the best childhood. And then I ended up going to Bowie State right after high school. And from Bowie State, I then moved to New York City. I lived there for 10 years, and then love brought me back to the DMV area in 2015, where I got married in DC and happened to reside in DC. And then we moved to Pentagon City.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So how far is that from St. Michael's? I only asked just out of curiosity because my mother and sisters live in St. Michael's.
St. Michael's, I want to say that's probably about an hour and 30 minutes or so.
Oh, okay. So it's not that.
It's a little ride. Yeah.
Okay. No biggie. No biggie. What's up, Wiley? Everybody head over to gogotix.co where you can see the other side of the conversation. And yeah, so gogotix.co. Sorry, I'm trying to work on my stuff here. Pasting. I'm pasting the information into Instagram here so that you guys know, because there's a decent amount of people over there on Instagram, and I want to make sure they come over here. And at best, I want them to see my fancy new screen that I just did. You are the very first person that's come on with this fancy new screen thing that I've designed. Thank you very much. I'm sorry to cover up part of your screen with my little t-shirt, but
no, it's good. It's good.
We got to do something to bring some money in over here, So how did you get into when and how did you get into the music industry? Like how did that all start?
Tell you all about it. So I always tell people I've always known what I wanted to do. At the age of 11, I remember watching the movie Brooklyn that Spike Lee put out. And from the beginning of that, I was a big fan of Spike Lee. So I kind of followed his entire career. But at 11, there was a movie called Crooklyn. I love the way that he filmed it. I love the way that he scored it. So I said, I want to do entertainment. By the time I turned 13, the movie Jerry Maguire comes out. And you know the famous line that says, "Show me
money." Yeah.
I want to be an agent because I want to like get people deals. Had no idea, like years later, that's actually what I would be doing. Fast forward, I ended up going to Bowie, as I mentioned. I started interning with a record label by the name of Hidden Beach Records. If you're not familiar, Jill Scott was actually on that label, Kendrick the Family Soul, a lot of great soul artists, Jeff Bradshaw and Mike Phillips and people like that. So when I was an intern for Hidden Beach, they would send us CDs all the time and send us to concerts, and I would be promoting the product on my campus. I also was a radio program director at Bowie. So that was like my introduction to the music industry, just a 19, 20-year-old kid who loved music, who loved communication. Just trying to let these people know about these soul artists at the time that I actually really loved. From there, I went on to move to New York. I ended up interning at Def Jam and Motown. And then I went on to work for Central Park Summer Stage. If you're not familiar with Summer Stage, it's actually one of the largest music festivals in New York City. I did 6 seasons with them under Erica Elliott in music programming. And that by 2007, after doing my last leg of my internship at Def Jam, I said, you know what, I see what they're doing here. Either I could try to get a job at that time, like that Jay-Z was the president at the label, and then they had this big major layoff. So I was like, I know they laid off all these amazing people. I'm not going to start my own company. So Bryceland was birthed during that time of things that I seen at the label, things that I wanted to do differently. And because I actually have friends who are musicians that wanted shows, I just wanted to be put on. And I just said, hey, well, let me take a shot on you. And then I became a young manager, putting my student loans into my artists at the time and venues around New York City. And so many people were telling me no, but I just had a passion to push the people that I work with to further out into the marketplace. And that's pretty much how I really got my start in the music industry.
Okay, so basically everything you did at the beginning was for free.
Was for free.
Yeah.
No pay. Well, Summer Stage, I got paid. That was my job, but the internships, no pay.
Gotcha. Well, no, I say that because there's a lot of misconception, about how glamorous and well paid our lives are, and they don't even if they are that now, which is debatable, they don't start out that way, and it's an important point to make, I think.
Exactly. And I think when you're working in the industry and you start to be in some of these buildings and you start to see like what people are getting paid, and you said, okay, well, I can actually do that for myself. And honestly, at 23, that's when I started Bryceland. That was my inkling in my mind to say, hey, I see what's happening here. Let me just use some common sense and start my own thing,
Yep, absolutely. Well, and I assume you probably realized, I realized when I was at WPGC, I think was the first time I sort of realized that I just was like, oh, wow, we got Rare Essence on Instagram right now.
Yeah.
What's up? If everybody that's on Instagram, if you wouldn't mind just heading over to gogotix.co, you can see the other side of this interview here, and you can see who I'm talking to. We're talking about Anshia's history in the music industry right now, and we're going to pivot here in a minute to GoGo and how it applies to that. So I think it was when I was working at PGC that I realized that the people in charge weren't really that much smarter than I was. Like they didn't really have that much figured out. You know what I mean? Like everybody was trying to figure this shit out,
Yeah, I didn't say it, but
yeah. So that's that. But I think I was a little bit older than you, maybe like 25 or so by the time I figured that out. And that's when I oh, my mother-in-law, my brother-in-law are in here. Hey guys, thanks for coming on Instagram. Please head over to gogotix.co and you can click on today's episode and click watch, and you'll see the other side of the conversation too. So, okay, so tell me about the start of Bryceland. When did When did or where did it start exactly? And then, what did you have an office? Were you working out of your house? How'd that work?
I started Bryceland at the age of 23, and I started it in New York City. It actually was a New York City company. And like I said, I was in grad school when I started my company, and I've always worked from home. I've never had a brick and mortar. Even in this economy, to me, it doesn't really make sense until you scale and you get more people on the team, and you need that. But for myself, I started at 23 in New York City, had no idea what I was doing. My roommate at the time had started a business, and she had some books, and I decided to read how to start an LLC. And I was in grad school, so my master's is in film, and I was getting a concentration in media management, so I was kind of taking some of my media economics classes and my law classes, and just putting two and two together. And I mean, reading is fundamental, and I feel like I had some common sense, and I had a goal in mind. And like I said, at the age of 13 and 11, I kind of knew that I wanted to go into this entertainment industry. I just didn't know exactly where it was going to take me. But the very beginning, I started while I was at the new school getting my master's. I started working with some artists such as like Kurt Chambers and Jesse Boykins and a girl named Stephanie Curry. And then there was this guy named Eric Robeson who had a monthly series at SOBs called Soul Village. And I have been a fan of Eric Robeson for the longest, probably since about 2001 when I first heard him on the B-side of Jill Scott's Experience Live album. And by that time I had already moved to New York, so I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna go visit Eric's Soul Village. And from there, we actually built a relationship and started working together. So I've been with Eric for a very long time now, and that honestly was the beginning of Bryceland. Fast forward to 13 years later, I have, 299ers. I have another agent who works for me. But it's been a blessing. The journey has definitely been hard many times and many days. I wouldn't change it because it's my story,
For sure. So talking about working with, starting out with Eric, you didn't start out booking him, did you, or did you?
No, I did not. So I didn't start booking Eric until about 2009.
Okay.
I started out as on his little social media team, and at that time, it really wasn't even like crazy social media. Eric had a forum called Aerofam, and it was a bunch of people that sat on this board. And I feel like he had really tapped into something really, really early. Now you see like the Patreons and the Quibbies and the Imagine BCs, but I'm like, Eric Robeson was doing that a long time ago. He had the fam, even with Hidden Beach, we had this particular board where the interns would go in and log in and really get to network with one another, whether we were around the country or whatnot. So I joined his board. And from there, I met some of my best friends and my business partner, Tiffany Sweetlock. Shout out to her. I met her.
She's on here now.
Yeah, I met her on the board. And we've been working together for 13 years. But we both started out as his marketing people, social media. And I remember Eric was about to put out Music Fan First. And we've been two-time Grammy nominated for that album. He said, we were on a conference call. He said, who wants to book? Now, by this time, I'm working at Central Park Summer Stage. I've seen every single concert under the sun. I've been programmed from May to September, from all kinds of crazy summer weather. I'm like, okay, I do this like at my job. So who wants to book? I said, me.
So were you the buyer were you the buyer or talent buyer, or what were you doing?
I was a production assistant in music programming. So Erica Elliott is the buyer and the programmer, director of programming. So I worked under her and Michi Shasan, who was a music manager at that time. And so my job was to, once she booked the show and programmed the show, I would then talk to the road managers and, advance the hospitality, the writers with the production team, pick them up from the airport, that type of job. And I did a little bit of emceeing on the stage and things of that nature. But it was just really kind of working hands-on with the road management and their tour team. And so I actually got a chance to really meet so many really dope artists during that time. And so that's also a part of my journey and my school of booking, because really I didn't go to school to book. Nobody really taught me, but Summer Stage was my teacher. But Eric said, who wants to book? And I said, man, I had already been booking my little friends from the new school.
Right.
And it can't be too hard. So I was like, please just give me the opportunity.
It can't be too hard.
And I'm gonna show you. And I started looking at some of his numbers that my partner, shout out to Demo, was doing. And me and Demo have this like crazy relationship with one another. And I was like, I'm gonna try to outbook him. I'm gonna try to get higher deals. And then but Demo and Jarrell Allen, all those guys kind of taught me what routing meant, how to really plan a tour, what an offer sheet, what a settlement sheet, all those things that I didn't know before. Because then, and working at Summer Stage, I was just really kind of working with the tour, with the road manager, but it was more like admin type stuff. It wasn't really like, you're seeing the deals.
Right.
But Eric gave me that opportunity and I just ran with it and I've been with them since.
That's awesome. Well, so we have a sort of a pertinent question right now. So this is from Freedom Huerta. So Freedom wants to know, what is a talent buyer? And I think it's probably would be a good time to sort of reverse a little bit and sort of define all of those terms we just went through that you and I know so well, but most people don't know what they mean. So, okay, so let's start with, what's a talent buyer?
So a talent buyer is someone who works for the venue or a festival. They're the people that are hired to bring in the talent. So the talent buyer is actually working with an agent or manager to bring that talent into that space. They don't work for the artist. They don't get paid from the artist. They specifically get paid from the venue or the festival, anybody that has given them a contract or budget to go find talent. So that's what a talent buyer does. So if you ever hear somebody say, okay, well, the talent buyer at this venue, it's because they work for a particular venue or space. They will never get paid from the artist. And if they do, then that's wrong, and your ethics should be called out on that. But the talent buyer is somebody that works on behalf of a venue or a programmer or a festival.
Yeah. And a way I like to describe it is the venue is the flip side of the coin from a booking agent. So if you have a show that's being booked, the talent buyer works on behalf of the venue or the promoter, and the booking agent works on behalf of the artist. So
exactly.
That segues us right into this question that both of us obviously know the answer to. But what is a booking agent?
A booking agent is someone who works on behalf of the artist. A booking agent is a borderline salesperson. We are the people who go out and get you contracts, whether it's for live shows, tours, sometimes even brand endorsements, even though sometimes you might have an agency, but sometimes you can't do that. We basically get you a position for you to be in the performance space. Even on the literary side and theatrical side, you have those type of agents that specifically work on you getting shows or getting picked up on TV. Malachi and myself are music agents. So my job is to go out and keep my clients touring, keep them gigging, keep them in front of a fan base or an audience for performance and for speaking engagements and things of that nature. So that's what we simply do. We go out and sell you to the fan base so that we can all get paid and be happy and go on about our business.
Well, only one thing I would add to the definition of a booking agent, right? A music booking agent right now is unemployed, because there's no shows happening right now. So my sister in the struggle right now, we are trying to figure out things here. So so if you know a booking agent, do what you can to support them, because
do what you can.
So okay, all right. So you started with Eric sort of at the beginning doing social media, then you started over booking, and then what was your next client? Who was the next client, and how'd that come about?
My next client from there, and I've had a few. I want to say, Eric, we started working with Algebra Blissett. We did some one-off stuff with her, but she wasn't my main client. From there, I had people, like I said, Jesse Boykins. At the time we were working with him. I worked with a young lady named Kimberly Nicole. She goes by Kim Nikki. You might have seen her on The Voice. I managed her and booked her for a couple years. And then fast forward, come to the latter part of me living in the New York area. I started working with a young lady, a 12-year-old DJ named DJ Beauty and the Beats. She's from DC. We then went on to work with people such as Maimouna Youssef. I've been working on and off with PJ Morton for a very long time. We specifically handle his international touring. And then we added Kevin Ross. He's another DC native, went to Duke Ellington. Maimouna, if you didn't know, went to Duke Ellington. Then we started working with the Moores. They went to Duke Ellington. Eric Roberts went to Howard. So there's a lot of like that DC culture. And the clients that I work with, even if they don't reside here anymore. But those are our clients. And then we have two other clients that we've just taken, well, three other clients we've just taken on. A guy named Pal on the mic. He works at 93.9. And then Scoop B. Robinson, he's a sports journalist, and then a hair company called It Shores. So those are my clients.
Gotcha.
We do a little one-offs, and we have a festival that we produce, but we work with a lot of different people because we also talent buy through my festival as well.
Gotcha. Cool. So both of us have clients that, I have RC in the Grits, who RC is the music director for Erykah Badu and Snoop Dogg. And you have Maimuna, aka Moo Fresh, who, sings background for Common, and PJ Morton, who is, a member of Maroon 5. Mm-hmm. So how does that, what challenges, have you found, or have there been any with that scenario?
Well, honestly, the thing is, when I started working with Maimuna was coming on the last leg of working with Common. She made a decision that she no longer wanted to be a background singer. Just to go back a little bit later, actually, I forgot to mention Aaron Camper. So I want to tell you, when we work with Aaron Camper, if you're not familiar with him, Grammy nominated, has toured with everybody and their mother. We figured out a strategy of how to book him while he was on tour with these bigger artists. And that became like one of my specialties in Bryceland, was trying to figure out on their off days, what kind of opportunities can we create for him in the marketplace on his off days, or were there buyers in the market? Because, a lot of the people that he worked with was Jill Scott, Justin Timberlake, Diddy. So he had their fans following him around too. And I said, okay, well, let's try to flip this. Let's try to get their fans into some of the venues. And so that became our plan. But then on top of that too, then comes saying, I've been fortunate enough to work with artists that get it, that say, even though I've worked with a major artist, it's now my time to do the work for myself. So with Maimuna, she was ready to say, hey, I'm Moo Fresh, and I'm ready to do my own thing. I've learned a lot from Common. And then we just started, getting invited to do things like NPR Tiny Desk, and then her career kind of just flourished from there. Do you hear that?
That noise?
Yeah, I hear something.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it is.
With PJ Morton, we only handle his international booking. And so when we handle his international booking, he's usually off from touring with Maroon 5. So we don't have an issue. I will tell you this. We ran into something last year where his manager has said, hey, we're done the domestic touring. We want to focus on international. Maroon 5 is going to be taking a break. This is when we want to hit in fourth quarter. We had an 11-city tour. Maroon 5 was supposed to have taken a break. Maroon 5 decides that they want to go back on the road. We then have to switch the tour from October to November to January of 2020. Mm-hmm. And so that was crazy because we already had shows on sale, and you're dealing with international fans. That's a totally different conversation to have.
Yeah, that's a whole nother ball game doing
that. So the thing is with PJ, we've always worked around his routing outside of Maroon 5s and when he's about to put an album out. So that was the only time we had a hiccup, but it worked out because when we changed into January, we actually sold out every single date except for one. So that's been pretty amazing. But like I said, I've been blessed enough to work with artists where they get it. Like they want to do the work for themselves. They want to be able to almost compete with the people that they've worked with in the past.
That's awesome. I mean, I've had a great experience with RC so far, but there are other people that I've worked with before that, from a buying side or management side or whatever, that, have performed with a bigger artist, and they don't seem to get the difference between, hey, you don't get the same rider that you get with Erykah Badu. You're not getting anywhere close to the same money. You're not, or even artists that are successful in their own, but they have a side project, and they may understand on some level that the side project is not the same thing as their larger project, but I still don't think that they understand that a side project is a totally new thing, you know,
Something totally-
regardless of whether your name's attached to it or not. So yes,
Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't want to cut you off. I will say the only thing that I can say is that I ran into this with Maimuna in the very beginning of our work relationship. I decided to book a show at Baltimore Soundstage. I'm thinking she's from Baltimore. I'm thinking she, you know, grew up in the DC area too, that the fan base was going to be there.
Yep.
And I think she might have assumed that the fan base was going to be there too. But for one, you got to remember that you hadn't really been touring for yourself.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think we learned the hard way. I had to end up counseling the show to say, hey, if you don't have the numbers, then we can't have the show because you're going to lose money. I'm going to lose money and the venue's going to lose money because I also come from the venue side. I can understand both sides.
Same here. Yep. Same.
Yeah. So, but she got it after that. And then she's just like, okay, now, you know, when we talk about marketing, that's one thing these artists like a RC Negrits or Maimuna, really, when you're coming off the road with a major artist, you are not that artist. But their fans are their fans. You've got to work 10 times harder to promote yourself.
Yeah.
And to say, hey, you don't want to perform to an empty room. And you might honestly, what if you don't have a guarantee? What if you have a door deal? You're not gonna make no money at the end of the night. So I think that particular situation and scenario was where she learned, like, oh, I really got to go hard for myself. Because if nobody else is going to come and support me, then I got to really support myself and push myself as well.
Indeed. Well, that's sort of a nice segue into another question we have here from Living in Music. They want to know what's the best way to acquire a booking agent as an indie artist, and what does the booking agent look for when considering working with an artist?
That's a good question. I will say this. Don't look for a booking agent until you know that you can sell out or book your own shows on your own and that you've created your own base for yourself, or until you get so busy that you need the help. That's when I think you really should start looking for a booking agent. That goes back into doing your research. That goes back into the grind and the hustle for yourself as an independent artist. I mean, just even being on social media, you can honestly kind of see who might be an agent, you know, or look at some of these other agencies to see like what their profile is on LinkedIn or Instagram and see who they're connected to, because they might be connected to an independent artist. Start showing up at some of these venues and networking, or getting in touch with maybe your local chapters of the Recording Academy. But I mean, I always say your network is your net worth. That's where you start. You kind of got to be in the scene to figure out who's who. I think a booking agent looks for an artist, like I said, who's already doing the work. I'm at a point in my career where I will work with a newer artist, but you have got to do the groundwork so that I can come in and say, okay, you've already made that phone call. Like I said, I'm your salesperson. I want to be able to have something to sell. If you're not giving me something to sell, now, unless I truly believe in you and I say, okay, I want to take this time and invest developing your craft, then that's something totally different. But I already want to come into a situation with an artist and say, hey, there's a package. You've already got the EPK together. You already got the one sheet together. You've already got your numbers streaming. If I can see that you're doing the work for yourself, then myself as an agent will want to work with you. And if the music is good, but also most importantly, I'm a female who loves live musicianship. Can you perform?
Yep.
Can you perform? If you can't perform, then you might want to go take some classes. I'm being real though.
Yep.
I don't want to waste time, and I don't want you to waste time reaching out to me. Let's make it a mutual marriage, and then we can kind of grow from there, you know?
Yeah. Well, I always say, and this is not true in all cases, but don't look for an agent.
Don't look for one.
Wait until one finds you, and when one finds you, you know you're doing everything right.
You're doing everything right. I 100% agree with you.
Yeah. So, we can't we don't create the demand for you. We can't. It's not our gig to make things work for you. And to make people come to see you. Our gig is to deal with the talent buyers, to get you the best deal that we can get, and to make sure that that the show goes smoothly as possible. But we can't make the people show up. So you have to be able to already have people showing up. You have to have a demand. You have to have a fan base. And that's easier and harder than it's ever been before, because obviously you have access to a lot more tools. I mean, even the fact that we're able to do this right now, and I'm able to put this T-shirt right here and my name up top and all this, you know what I mean, for like $25 a month or something like that, is insane. Like, you used to have a broadcast network when we were coming up, and a TV station, you know, and now you can just do it yourself.
Yeah.
But the difference is that, or the downside of that is that now everybody can do it themselves.
Absolutely.
And so that means there's a lot more noise. And so you have to figure out what's going to cut through. So I think also from a booking agent perspective, what's going to make us be interested in you is if you're doing something different than everybody else is doing. If you're digging when other people are zagging, and it doesn't mean just do something different for the sake of being different. It's got to be different, and it's got to be awesome.
And it's got to be awesome. That right there. If you don't believe in yourself, then I can't believe in you.
Exactly. Be awesome. That's the answer to the question. Living in the music. I can't tell who that is, but you know me, obviously, because you said my name earlier. So let me know who you are in the comments. But I don't know who Living in Music is, but hope that answers your question. Okay, so you got Eric going. You bringing on these other artists. How did you? For example, how did you go from having Eric to then picking up Mamouna or picking up PJ, or how did those things happen?
Yeah, so I'll start with PJ. PJ, honestly, I've been working with PJ just as long as I've been working with Eric. And that's almost 12, 11 years now.
Mm-hmm.
PJ and I were friends. We were friends. All of us, we all kind of hung out in that Soul Village crowd. Whenever he would come to town, all of us would get together. I remember back in 2007, I had Gene Baylor from the group Jeanne. I had Eric Roberson. I had PJ Moore, and Tiffany and I, my business partner, Sweetlocks, we put on a Hurricane Katrina benefit concert. That was the first concert that PJ ever did for us. And he was in Atlanta at that time, and him and his entire band flew to New York City. I had no real budget. Wow. And decided to do that for us. If you knew anything about PJ's originally from New Orleans, and Hurricane Katrina had just passed 2 years prior. So he said, you know what? Shout out to his manager, Tanya, who's a really good friend of mine, and he's been with her for like the longest. They came and did my first concert. My second concert in New York. And then we just kind of been working together. And so when he would come to town, his manager would say, you know, I see you're routing Eric here and you're routing Eric there. Can you, at this time, PJ wasn't the PJ Morton that he is today. He wasn't selling out these crazy big rooms, and he wasn't touring as much for himself. He was touring, but he wasn't selling out a lot of spaces, and he wasn't in some markets that I had already been in. So they took the opportunity with Bryceland, and so I would end up booking him in some domestic markets, and then from there they caught wind of what we were doing internationally, and he's been sticking with us. And it took us really 3 years to kind of break PJ into the international market before we really saw like the return back on the investment of fans coming out to pay for shows. So we've been working with him for just as long. Now, Mamouna, special case.
Wait, real quick, how long did you say it took you to break PJ?
3 years international. 3 years
international. And that was post Maroon 5 or pre-Maroon?
No, he was still a member of Maroon 5.
So that's important. Pay attention.
Yeah.
This guy is the keyboard player for Maroon 5, one of the biggest bands in the world, and it still took you 3 years to break him internationally with one of the biggest being part of one of the biggest international groups in the entire world. And what size rooms was he playing when you started them? Now?
We started him in, I want to say about 150, 250 cap rooms. Now we are playing 500 to 1,000 cap rooms.
Okay, and just for everybody that's not in the industry, cap is short for capacity. 100 means that 100 people can fit in the building, and 1,000 means 1,000 can fit in the building. So you 10x, 5 to 10x his audience.
Yeah,
you grew him over the course of 2 to 3 years. And how did you do that over the course of 2 to 3 years? You kept taking him back to the same market.
Every year we've been taking him back to the same market, but also too, PJ put out music. While he wasn't touring, he would put out albums, and Gumbo actually just so happened to be an album that won a Grammy. and did really, really well. And so by this time, you started to see more of a different demographic starting to pay attention to PJ. So we said, you know what? This album is doing really, really well. He has a hit song with the girl Yebba. You know what? Let's see what our international partners want to do. So we just kind of like said, hey, you got to go now. Trust us on this. The album is doing well. He just won a Grammy. We know there's international presence just from the year before. We might have not sold out some of those rooms, but we said we got to bring you right back. So we brought him back the next year, and then we saw that more fan engagement was coming. PJ is also really good, like Eric Roberson, at promoting himself online. He's very good at marketing, very good at being strategic about the way that he does things. And him and Eric both interact with their fans very, very well. They don't just let somebody come in and say, you run my social media, but they engage very well. So that honestly kind of was like a 50-50 marriage to us. We honestly like to work with people who are engaging with their fans. So PJ was doing a really good job with that. So we already had the album. We already had the music. He was already domestically working with Paradigm. So, okay, you see him in the domestic market, which is America, touring. And we said, okay, well, he decided that he wanted to stay with us internationally. And then, you know, more fans started to pay more attention. And then the new album comes out again. And then Paul comes out and he wins another Grammy this year. And so we said, okay, well, you know, we're on to something. So once again, you know, hopefully, prayerfully next year, I can't say this year, we'll be able to take them back over there and go into even bigger rooms, because we just seen the demographic, and we've seen the fan base grow, the type of people that are coming. It's not just your soul fans, it's everybody. I'm starting to see the Maroon 5 fans come into him, because more his name is getting out there. Shout out to his PR company that's doing an amazing job with them too. But I mean, he's really kind of working his campaign, and it's kind of working on his behalf. But in regards to Maimouna, Eric Roberson said, you know, hey, Shia, I have this young lady that I think you should work with. And I was familiar with Maimouna. I knew her basically because she opened for us in 2013 at SOBs for Eric. And I was really blown away. But after that, she really wasn't on the scene as much. She went on to tour with Common, and I think she was with Common for 5 years. And so I would see her around the way or at some shows, wherever Common was. But I didn't pay any more attention to her. So Eric comes to me and he says, hey, I have a friend. I really think she could use some help. She could use your help. And I said, okay, tell me about it. I was like, oh, I really like her. Like, she's dope. Like, you know, I would love to work with her, but didn't think nothing else about it. So then Eric was also having the same conversation to Maimouna about me. Like, hey, my agent, you know, she's really good. She's passionate about music, about the work that she does. I think you two should work together. It would be a perfect marriage. It's so crazy. Me at that year, this is 2017. Maimouna and myself actually both sat on the DC Grammy chapter board, Recording Academy.
Yep.
And we sat right beside each other. And we're going around the room, and as she's sitting beside me, I'm not even paying her no attention.
Right.
They said, introduce yourself. So I introduced myself. I said, hey, everybody, I'm Anshia Cruz, Bracelet Entertainment, blah, 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 blah. And then she goes after me and she starts saying she's Maimouna. We turned and looked at each other. And I was like, Eric told me I should work with you. She said, Eric told me I should work with you. After that, we've been working together. We've been connected since. And it's just by us actually being in the same place at the same time. And Eric was already talking to both of us about each other. And so that's honestly how I started working with Maimouna. And it's been a joy. It's been a journey, and it's been a joy at the same time.
Well, both of those stories bring up a really important point about the industry and being successful in the industry. And I know we have some aspiring artists on here, so it's a really important thing to address. Yeah. First of all, with PJ Morton, you said he's got Paradigm as his domestic booking agent. If people don't know, Paradigm is one of the largest booking agencies in the world, and they have extremely strong, although they don't do much international booking, they have extremely strong relationships with international booking agencies like Coda and some of the other ones over in the UK and elsewhere. So the fact that your relationship was strong enough with PJ that even though he was with Paradigm in the US, that he still stayed with you, as opposed to I'm sure that Paradigm probably pressured him into going.
Oh my God, no! This actually happened last summer. This happened before. Well, actually, I want to say this time last year, Paradigm at this point, his manager is no longer doing domestic booking. They move when he's getting so big at this point that he has to go in with a major, or he at least wants to capitalize off of the festivals and the relationship in the venues that they have. So this time last year, I remember management saying, you know, we're going with Paradigm. Paradigm has relations internationally. They basically wanted to take our accounts. They put a whole tour plan together, basically looked at the routing that we had and said, hey, we're going to go and get you some offers. Okay, well, the offers came back. The offers actually were lower than the offers that we got. Oh, wow. And I don't know if I can share that, but I'm sharing it. And then also, too, we have a great relationship. But the manager said to Paradigm, basically, we don't want to mess up the relationship that we had, because there was also, I think it's X-Ray Touring. That's she's an international agent, but I don't know if they rubbed them the wrong way or whatever happened. But she said, you know, the management said we have a great relationship with Bryceland. We've always gotten fair deals. The buyers that they work with are amazing thus far. And they said, you know what, we're good. We're going to stay with Paradigm for domestic, but we're going to keep rocking with Bryceland for international. And that really meant a lot to me, because, you know, we're a little engine that could. And so the fact that we, you know, really go over and beyond for our clients, I know that means a lot to them, and it means a lot to us for him to say, you know what, hey, I'm like at this point 2-time Grammy winner, and I have major sponsorships and deals and Maroon 5, and he never lost, you know, the core value about himself or the people that kind of have helped him along the way. And, you know, like I said, it's a 50-50 marriage. We match how hard he goes, and he matches how hard we go. And I think it's been a blessing and a great relationship. So I really appreciate PJ's management, Tanya, and himself for, you know, working with us. And even when we're still learning, they take a chance on us every single day, and we're just going to continue to build as long as they allow us to.
That's super dope. And then, but like what you just said, when you match, you know what I mean? And that's an important thing for artists to understand. Like there isn't anybody that's going to come in and save you. There isn't anybody that's going to come in and do the work for you. But if you do it yourself, if you start putting in the work and you start building up the fan base and you start building up momentum, then there are people that can come in and match your energy and help you, you know, catch a fire to that spark.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we can't do it for you. And it's a very important point. But then you know, and back to the relationship thing, which I think a lot of artists look at as a negative thing. So, oh, well, he only got this deal because he knew this person and he knew that person and he knew this person. And that's only, you know, because this person knew that person. Yeah, you can know all of the people that you want.
Absolutely.
But if you don't act with integrity, if you don't act with strong ethical standards, and you don't work your ass off, it doesn't matter who you know, because they're not going to do anything for you.
They're not going to do anything for you. You're just going to sit.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. And and the reason I'm saying this so emphatically is because obviously this show is geared more towards the go-go community.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of that. There's a lot of, you know, for lack of a better term, entitlement in the go-go community. And a lot of, that's all right. My Google voice thing is going on and everything over here. But there's a lot of, you know, like, oh, I'm good at my instrument. We crank. Somebody come and do all the rest of the work for me. And that's not how it works in go-go or the major music industry. Like, I mean, even just taking the microcosm of go-go for a second. And this is what I always tell people when people say, well, the promoter's supposed to promote. We're not supposed to promote. We're just supposed to play. We're getting paid to play.
No.
Well, look at the most successful go-go band that there is right now, which is Backyard. And when you look at every single person in that band's Instagram page and you look how much they promote. I mean, obviously they're not promoting any shows now because there aren't any shows happening. But if Backyard needs to promote their shit, then you need to promote your shit.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just an important thing. And then I sort of digress a little bit from the relationship thing. But it is important to keep relationships and to do what you say you're going to do and to act with integrity. And that's how you keep relationships. And this is a relationship game, whether you like it or not. It's not an unfair advantage. It's what you have to do to play the game. So you need to create the relationships, and not only with the industry people, but also with your fans. And you need to create fans, and creating fans will attract the interest of industry people. Creating your relationships, which therefore just keeps going in this cycle of success, as opposed to I'm such a great musician, everybody should just fall down and before me and do everything for me, and it just doesn't work like that. So it's very important to hear you talk about that, and also with Maimouna, the fact that you were doing such a great job for Eric that he felt compelled to say, you should check out my agent. And that's how a lot of these things happen. Like almost every client I've gotten has been from a relationship or from another client doing a good job for another client. That's how it works, So
and I would say it's about the power of the RR. It's about the research and the relationship. That's, you hit it already about building and doing your homework. If you research and you understand your fan base, your demographic, your core base and things of that nature, and you're ready to do the work, then people are going to see that. And once you make that relationship, people will remember how you make them feel. So, you just want to do your best at keeping great relationships with folks, and people will look out for you moving forward.
Yep, absolutely. So we have Old School Queenie on here who says she needs an agent. I think she missed the earlier part. I'm not sure. I haven't checked out your stuff, Old School Queenie. But what we were saying earlier is that don't mistake the agent for the magic person that's going to press a button and make you successful and book you all of these shows. I get a lot of that, and I'm sure you do too. A lot of artists that say, "Oh, well, I need shows. I need an agent."
No,
that's not when you need an agent. You need an agent. Yeah, you need an agent when you have so many shows that you can't
handle it. Exactly.
Yeah, you can't handle it yourself, and you need someone that's going to be able to sort of take you up to that next level. The agent is not going to come in and help you when you're just getting started. So I'm not sure. I don't mean to say that maybe you're great. Maybe you're selling out rooms already. I don't know, but I just want to make sure that was clear for anybody that wasn't in earlier when we went over that part. Yeah. So let me get to my questions here. Sorry. So what do you so you were with Eric, not necessarily from the very, very beginning, but pretty much from early on. And he's sort of like not notorious. That's has a negative connotation. He's everything. The way that I hear about Eric Roberson all the time is that he's a touring machine, that he kills it on tour. What do you think? We sort of already spoke about what the agent does in that respect, but what does he do? And this is good for some of the artists that are watching. What do you attribute his success specifically on the live side from? And of course, it dovetails with the recorded side as well. And feel free to speak on that too.
Right. From Eric, what I think he attributes is the fact that Eric he has an album called Mr. Nice Guy. Mm-hmm. He's actually one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. But I think he's an artist that actually cares about his fans. Mm-hmm. He just doesn't put out music to say, hey, support my career or support my music. Like, he goes back, he gives all of himself to his fans, whether it's the music and he tours nonstop, like nonstop. The only time Eric is not touring is when he has a kid or when he's making an album. And after that, as soon as that album is done, he's ready to go back out. But I think it goes back to, like I said, him and PJ, to me, it's really about what they give to their fans. Their fans know that they love them. Mm-hmm. Whether it's him taking times out, even before the pandemic, like Eric was already doing concerts on his Patreon site. Mm-hmm. He gives back. And I think, if you got a heart to give, you're always going to be blessed. Mm-hmm. And so for Eric, I think that you can see that in him as a musician, as an artist, as a songwriter, as a touring musician and things of that nature. I think it's just the way that he cares, and he goes online. I think in the age of social media, you can't unless you're super, super big, but pop in sometimes and say, hey guys, how you doing? And I think Eric has been able to win his fans over that way. And he's just an awesome person. He's a good person. He doesn't burn bridges. And I think that's one thing that's been helpful to his career over time. Even before we got with him, I think his team has actually pushed him out. There's a group of us that work with him that are forever pushing him, but he pushes us just as much as we push him. And with him pushing us as well, it makes the team want to go even harder for him. You know, I don't know if you're familiar, but even during this time, Eric put an album out just about the beginning of the pandemic. When nobody else is really putting out an album, he recorded an album in a week, almost 2 weeks, and said, hey, I want to put this out. I want to give my fans something because I already know, because he also teaches at Berkeley, that something crazy is about to happen. And then we started to see cancellation after cancellation. And so he said, you know what, I have these songs in my head. I just need to get them out. And so we're honestly, the team, we're looking at him like, you're crazy, you know, because you got to find out with the DSPs and all these other people and marketing. Like, how are we going to get this to the masses? But the key to that was social media, was his online engagement. He knew where his fans were. He knew how to get to his fans. And then he also made his team excited to say, you know what, we can do this. And so in the words of Nike, just do it. That's what the team decided to push him in, because he pushed us. Then we said, you know, we got to push ourselves. So I think for him, it's just the way that he is with people, because, you know, nobody wants to work with an ass, excuse my language, but people can see that. You see that in your music. Now with everybody doing these virtual concerts and these virtual talks and things of that nature, people can see people for who they really are. But I think what you see for him, you see how genuine he is, and he has a heart to give for his fans. And I mean, honestly, the fans are the people that support our careers. And so you want to make sure that you're engaging with them and giving them something that they'll look forward to when we're able to get back out on a stage and do what we do.
Well, that's a good. So talking about the sort of virtual performances, that brings me to this next question from Kisa here, which, yes, I can see from it says Kisa question mark, but I can see from the picture that it's my friend Kisa Clark.
Hey, Kisa, hello, Kisa.
As she said hello to you earlier. I used to work for Kisa and her husband I used to manage Aja Amani, their clothing store. So so Kisa and Kisa calls me. I don't know if she calls you as much as she calls me, but she calls me for all kinds of advice about stuff all the time. And so I'm going to set up like I need a Patreon account just for Kisa. You're going to start paying me. Buy a t-shirt, Kisa. I'm just giving her a hard time. That's my own. So she wants to know, how has the coronavirus affected your work with your clients, and has it required you to be more creative, and in what ways?
So in the beginning of coronavirus, truthfully, and I think I shared this with you, Malachi, I wasn't an agent or entrepreneur that said, oh, I got to figure it out right now, and I got to do. Like, I left that for the artists. I left that for Maimuna. I left that for Eric, PJ, whomever else. I needed to take a mental break. And I took a mental break just to like clear my mind. I had some other stuff going on, and I just needed some time. Coronavirus for me shut everything down. Be honest with you, like Malachi said before, it left us unemployed.
Yep.
It left you switching dates that were supposed to happen in this moment, moving it to the fall, moving it to 2021. It had me almost had me second guessing myself in this industry, saying, I need to go get another job. I need to do this. I almost kind of like lost hope for a second in myself. Like, it's like, you love this industry, you love the music, you love your artists, but it's like the industry right now is not loving you because no one can perform. And what we do is we create opportunities for artists to perform. And so I almost had 30 shows that were canceled and postponed. And it mentally tapped me out. I couldn't see the break of day or daylight. And so for me, I always say this, my clients, Eric and Maimuna, honestly helped me get out of that funk. I started to see how Maimuna started creating her songwriting workshop that she does, her Mooniversity. Eric put the album out. Eric was still they were encouraging me to get back on my grind. They gave me a moment to say, chill out, get yourself together. If you need that mental break, because some of us need a mental break, to say, hey, it's going to be all right. And so I started to watch them and just get quiet in the zone and say, you know what? I'm going to start writing out more of my goals of what I want to do. the things that I want to do for Bryceland, what I want to do, and I started to change my mindset. So the thing about me is, and my clients, whenever my artists take time to record an album, I said this time for me is when an artist is recording an album. When an artist is recording an album, they're not touring unless they're doing a one-off date. They're really in a creative space. So I said, you know what? I'm going to get in a creative space of where an artist is right now. I'm going to start forecasting for 6 to 10 months out. Early on in March, I kept saying, I don't think this, I was just watching the news so much. I said, I think that concerts are not going to happen until next year. I've been saying this,
Yep.
you know? And so I said, you know what? I'm going to treat this like an artist is recording an album at this time. And I'm going to start pitching to new buyers. I'm going to change everything up on my company side. I'm going to be more strategic about the partnerships and the relationships that I build. And then also, too, I'm going to start hitting some of my old buyers and promoter friends that I work with and say, hey, what are you guys working on? Crazy thing is, about 2 weeks later, Mid-Venue started requesting my clients to perform. And at first, it was coming in for free. But then now you have people hitting us every other week saying, hey, can we do a pre-recording? Can your artist do this? And they're actually paying us now. It might not be the money that you once were making, but it's something.
Right.
Then I started to get more creative with my team, and I had a great call with my team the other day about some things that Bryceland actually wants to do, even outside of the artist. You know, I also lost a whole festival during this time. That's a whole big contract that I lost, but because we were also in kind of still a part of agreement, it's still some money that is still owed on that. Totally fine, and they're good with that. So we're making right with that as well. So that's still something that's coming in. But I think you just get smarter during this time and you reposition what you might have already been doing. Pivot, as that's the famous word right now. But, you know, I got out of that mindset of saying the music industry doesn't love me no more. Look, I have no more shows. I've been all cried out. Yeah. Now I'm ready to like, what's going to happen in 6 to 10 months from now? When 2021 gets here, and we've actually started getting more offers come in for our clients because they are seeing our clients online engaging, putting albums out. So if our clients are doing that, then we have to shift our mindset too. So I've just gotten creative, and we have some great things coming too. And like you said, like you're doing even right now, we're tapping into virtual as well. But just trying to be strategic about the things that we're doing. And so that's pretty much, I hope I answered her question, but that's what we're doing right now.
No, you did. And Freedom says, wow, thank you for your vulnerability.
Freedom Writer, I love her.
And since you opened the door, I guess I have to be vulnerable now too, because I had, like, you handled this way better than I did. I think I was okay, this isn't a joke. Like, this is going to shut things down. And I remember talking to our mutual friend, John O'Neill over at City Winery, like right when the very first thing started happening. And I was like, dude, this is going to be a problem. And he's like, well, I'm a little older than you, and I've been through a couple of, downturns before, and people still want music and want to go see music. And I'm like, yeah, but not if you can't go anywhere. So I did sort of like, I knew it was going to be a problem before, like, it really became a problem, but I still just kind of was like, I don't know what to do. You know what I mean? I don't know how to adjust for it. So I did honestly start looking for jobs, and then I'm like, well, I got employees, and I can't just let them down, and I can't just, like be like, all right, well, I got a job, guys, I'm out. Sorry. So I had to, to try to figure it out. And then that's when I started. I've always wanted to have, more of a marketing side to the agency. And I've hired a couple of people freelance, but they weren't as invested, and they did a good job while they were there, but it was straight upfront money. And, the most of the artists that need that aren't making any money yet. You know what I mean? So I was able to finally hire someone, on a commission basis, which is unusual in that capacity, to sort of work with us on that. And then there's something else I wanted to tell you about too. There's the guy that started Pandora, Tim Westergren. You may already know this, but he has they started a new thing called Sessions Live, and it's like basically it's like live streaming, but they monetize it differently. It's more like a gamified.
Okay.
So it's like Twitch, how they monetize on Twitch, but it's specifically for music. And so we've been working with them. It's it's a new thing, so it's not 100% all together yet. They're doing basically like show deals, so it's like a guarantee with versus type of situation. So for anybody that's watching it, a versus is basically a guarantee. With a versus means you either get the X amount of money, say $1,000, or you get 70% of what comes in,
right?
Whichever one is more, and it may or may not be after expenses. We don't have to get that complicated with it right now. But anyway, so we've been working on some of that stuff, and then adding in the marketing side as well. And then once I get that beefed up, I want to be able to offer marketing services, not just for specific shows, but also for other kinds of things as well. And then I also started this show, which basically like gave me a reason to get up and take a shower and wash my and wear a clean shirt every day. And then I just launched the t-shirts too, which I can't point because it's on your side, but
it's right there, folks.
Yeah, go buy a t-shirt, go buy a sweatshirt over at gogotix.co/shop. I did flirt with the idea of just putting up everybody's Cash App on this thing because we're all hurting right now. But I just decided to go ahead and just go ahead and do the shirts and see if that works. So okay, so I do kind of want to bring this around to GoGo, because obviously that's what this is. This is about. So as someone that's from the DMV area, has been integral to the success of at least two artists from the DMV area who have grown themselves, to a point where they are full-time musicians, if I'm not mistaken. And are tour with bands that I'm assuming they have to pay. They have to pay their agent. They're not just like weekend warriors, like play this weekend or something. Like they're going on tour. They're doing big things. What do you think that, just to use them as an example, that Maimouna Youssef, aka Mumu Fresh, and Eric Roberson have figured out that go-go bands haven't figured out?
I don't want to say go-go bands don't hustle, because they definitely do hustle. I think they've figured out how to work with people outside of the marketplace. The thing about go-go bands, and I love go-go. Like I said, I'm from Maryland. I went to Bowie State. I've been around go-go all my life. I just even being a child from watching Evie and Sugar Bear doing the Bud and Shake That Thing, and going back to some of the bands and back in the day. But I think that the people that I work with have been able to branch outside of the DMV area. And I think they've also been strategic about marketing. They've been strategic about collaboration, about partnership. I think that's one thing. I think that, and I'm pretty sure there are some go-go bands doing that right now. But I think if you're not taking this time to really build collaborations of different partnerships outside of DC, then maybe hang it up. Real talk. Like, even here's the time to where publishing and songwriting and music supervising is popular, because everybody's sitting at home. This is a time where maybe you could be coming up with an original composition and saying, hey, how can I get to a music supervisor so that my music could then get played on a television show? Because music supervisors are looking for music in this time. If you listen to any pro, they're saying oh my God, people are calling left and right for pay. And for partnerships and for songwriting. But I think that the people that I work with, they're still songwriting, they're still collabing, they're still partnering. They learn how to get out of the DMV area and say, you know what, this is always going to be home for me. But I got to go build somewhere else. So I think if go-go bands can get that in their mind to hustle outside of the fan base that you've grown with. Like, the thing is, the DMV.
Sorry about that.
It's okay. It's in the DMV area. It's homegrown. It's homebred. It's there. It's been with you. But are you familiar with what happens internationally? I think the conversation has to be started. I mean, it's a great thing that you're also in LA, but you come back and forth. that you can have a conversation with maybe California people who might not know. It starts with a conversation and say, hey, maybe I reach out to my favorite artist, whether it's Eric Roberson, or maybe say, hey, my Muna's from here. Maybe say, let's collab and do a song together because we know that she has some more like, greater clout or something on her name at this moment. But I think the most important thing is really collaboration and partnership.
Mm-hmm.
And not being afraid to step outside of DC. I think the great thing about Don't Mute DC it was that it gave its stuff a major platform, but then you also seen it kind of dive down a little bit. We need Don't Mute DC right now. Stop muting yourself.
Right.
What's the next step outside of Don't Mute DC? Are you talking about it? Are you saying, hey, I want to go build this curriculum at Howard or UDC or Bowie State or American or Catholic or all these different places? Excuse me if you've already done this, but what's the next steps of making the next generation know about go-go and teaching the history of it? And then going to another market, say, you know what, call your cousin up down in Atlanta and say, hey, I know you might know somebody in the music industry, or host a listening party outside of DC. Mm-hmm. I think that's going to be the next thing that artists need to do. And I think my clients have already been doing that. They've been collabing with other artists outside of this area. And then, gaining newer relationships, like I said, with music supervisors to sync your music. But I think those are some of the things that you should be doing right now. And I think once the DMV, the go-go bands get that, and like it goes back to something that you said earlier in marketing, like you got to push yourself, not just push your show, but branding. Take this time during this pandemic to rebrand your band, clean up your social media. So when a brand agency gets back, and brand agencies have usually relationships with different companies, such like it may be a Toyota or maybe your favorite clothing line or your favorite, I don't want to say liquor company, but water company or whatever the case may be. Like rebrand yourself in this moment to say, we got this music. We were a part of Don't Mute DC. We are the history of the DMV area, the metropolitan area. We are the legacy of the Chuck Browns and the Rare Essences and the Trouble Funks and things of that nature, to say this is my time. And when you have a virtual concert, make sure that stuff is great. Make sure your sound is great, but take this time to really do your homework, reinvest in yourself as a go-go band, and get yourself together so that people in New York City will still rock out with you, not just at a party that somebody played the music, but keep the conversations happening outside of DC. And I think that's what's going to happen with Muna and Eric. We continue to keep the conversations happening outside of DC, outside of Baltimore, outside of other parts of Maryland or Virginia. You got to keep the conversations happening, but take this time to reinvest in branding yourself.
Well, so you're 100% right. But I'm going to tell you that I know right now, the problem, you're not wrong at all. But what go-go bands, no, I'm just saying what go-go bands here, when you say that is, how am I getting paid? Who's paying me? How who are you going to pay me to work with this art? Like I'll just tell you a story. I'm not going to say who the artist was, but I heard a story the other day about a prominent person in go-go who was on a prominent song by a national artist that features a go-go sound, and that the offer from the artist to that person was, I'll give you 10% of this song. And that go-go person said, no, I want my money. And so they took the upfront cash for that money. I'm sorry, for that song. And then when the song did well, then they wanted more.
You can't.
Yeah. And so this is the exact reason for this show, is to get these kinds of things out there, because these kinds of things don't get talked about. Yeah. And so the reason that go-go bands don't collaborate with other artists or other people in other areas is because they think they're supposed to get paid for it up front, or they think they're supposed to get paid all of this money, especially if they're working with a big artist. They think, oh, well, this artist has a lot of money, they're supposed to give me all this money. Yeah. Or if somebody asks them to play in another place, or they have somebody that's actually pushing for them to get to play in another place, they have an unreasonable expectation. Again, going back to what we said earlier, or maybe it was before we came on, of that go-go bands think that they're supposed to get paid more money to play in a different city than they get paid in DC. And it's right. So that's what I'm saying. So when you say that, I want to take it back a little bit, because when Maimouna and Eric started touring, what did the money look like versus what it looks like now after they built up their fan base?
Oh my gosh, it is a major difference. Like they're both sitting comfortable. You know what I mean? I'm pretty sure they want more money now, but let's go back 10 years for Eric. Eric was not getting what he gets now. But at the same time, we understood that we had to go into a different marketplace, whether it was us renting the venue after we built the fan base, or taking that door deal and saying, hey, I got to come in and I got to show people that I can do it. That particular band that you just talked about, okay, you want your 10%, but then you want something later. It doesn't work like that. If this prominent artist has that fan base, don't you know, if you continue to build that relationship, that particular fan base is going to follow you.
Yep.
It's not about just taking quick cash. You know what I mean? This is the industry.
That's been the go-go thing. And especially over the last 10, 15 years or so, since when the cover song thing has become such a crutch. It's that I'm going to make my $150. I'm going to make my $200 or whatever, with no sort of vision for the future or what's going to go beyond that. So I just want to get a little bit specific. So when you were, 10 years ago in that example, you're talking about Eric Roberson.
Yeah.
When he was going to, first of all, let's define a door deal. A door deal means you don't get any money up front. You get a percentage of what comes in the door. And that may or may not be after certain expenses are paid. Sometimes the venue will say after $250, you get 50% of the door or whatever. So there's no guarantee that if one person comes, you ain't making shit. So yeah, there's no guarantee at all. Now, when there was a guarantee, was it enough, do you think, to cover all of his expenses?
In the beginning, when I first started booking Eric, I can't speak on anybody else that worked with him. Absolutely not. When I really think about the math, when I really started to pay attention, because the very beginning of my booking career, one thing I did not pay attention to was how much he had to pay the band. Hospitality, was these things covered inside of that guarantee? Was it all in? Like you said, all in, meaning, is that payment and you get that one payment and then you got to cover everything within that all-in deal,
right?
Versus a guarantee that has the pluses behind it. I didn't think about all these things that Eric was getting, so I might have been negotiating on a lower rate. But when I started to see the expenses, what we started to do was look at the expenses to say, okay, well, we need this XYZ amount on a guarantee to make it, or if we know that we can sell out every time we come to DC, or we can sell out every time we go to Atlanta, we might take the door deal because we might make more money than what a buyer or a promoter is going to give us on that guarantee. But for Eric, I think we just had to be very strategic, because in the very beginning, no, he was not getting the deals, but he started to do the work. He started to be, like I said, during this time, you want to be strategic about rebranding. No artist can perform outside of virtual reality. So this is the time when you go back and say, I'm going to sit with my go-go band, and while we can't perform, what are we doing? What are we missing? What are we missing? What are we doing on the marketing side? Do we actually have fans in these other parts of the country? So what? You might have had a song that was with Jay-Z. Did that core fan base follow you? Did you do the work to keep those fans when you had that song with that particular prominent artist? Or maybe you didn't, because you know why? You thought that their fan base was going to actually really put you on. But no, you gotta do the work. With Eric, we started to get more strategic and more creative about how we engage with his artists. He was always putting out albums. We were continuing to do interviews and build with, not even just publicists like ourselves. And our camp was like saying, okay, like who can we tie to? How can we get him this interview? How can he show up on TV? How can you build with the essences? How can we get these magazine companies to talk about us? Do we have a story? Don't you do DC outside is another story? Like, how can we relay that back into what we actually do? You kind of got it. We started to pivot about the fan base, about the music, and keeping him in the marketplace. And I think when we saw how well things were, and then we would go in year after year, or maybe we might have split it like, one side of the year to another side of the year and say, you know what, we sold out this time, or we did pretty well this time. Then I can go and ask for more money the next time I play the market. Mm-hmm. Versus you got to pay me this big jump of money, or you got to pay me the same rate every time. It doesn't work like that. If you haven't proven to a buyer or to a promoter that you can sell in their market, why would you suggest that you get paid that amount of money? It doesn't work like that.
Well, there's a lot of, because, it's funny you say that, because I almost named this series "It Doesn't Work Like That," because I say that, I find myself saying that all the time. Yeah. But so a lot of go-go bands and musicians in go-go have it in their head that they're getting paid to play music.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about touring, when you're talking about what we call hard ticket shows, meaning people are paying not a festival, not a free show, not a 4 or 5 band bill, but unless you're the headliner, but a show where people are paying $10, $15 to come see your band.
Your band, right?
That's a hard ticket show. You need to develop that fan base that's going to come out and see you. You know what I mean? Or else you're not getting paid to play music. You're getting paid to sell tickets.
To sell tickets. That's the whole point of touring.
Right. And your ticket, the amount of tickets you can sell determines how much you get paid. So if you can't sell any tickets, then you're not worth anything. And I don't mean that in terms of you're not worth anything as a person, or your music isn't worth anything or anything like that. I'm talking about specifically in the live music landscape. Yes. You are only worth how many tickets you can sell. And the rule of thumb that I use, and tell me if you use one that's different. I don't even remember where I heard this, but I learned it along the way somewhere. I roughly gauge, and this is not an exact science by any stretch of the imagination, but I roughly gauge that an act is worth about 60% of the GBOR, which stands for gross box office receipt or gross box office revenue. So the total amount of tickets that come in. So if you sell 100 tickets at $10, it's $1,000. You're roughly worth about $600, and that other $400 goes to pay for the expenses of the club, and so the venue and the promoter and everybody can make a little bit of money as well. So do you have a rough?
No, it's very similar to what you're doing, and I think even working at Bethesda Blues and Jazz, when I had that account, like I would see a lot of that too. And so it was like, even as an agent, I thought one way, like, okay, well, we could do this. But when you look at the GBOR, you can see that. You can gauge that percentage factor as to how many people, and you can also see what they're doing online.
Yep.
You know what I mean? You could gauge that. So it's very similar to how your method is as well.
Yep.
Like.
Cool. Well, Ashia, thank you very much. We're a little over our hour right now, but that's okay because
we're passionate.
This is great. I think this is a lot of good information that artists need to know, and I really hope that that there's some go-go bands that pay attention to this, maybe that aren't here now. But the good thing about this is that it automatically uploads, so it'll be up forever.
Okay.
I really want to thank you very much, and not only just for coming onto this, but for being such just a supportive person in general. And you gave me a lot of confidence when I was deciding to start my agency, because obviously I came from all around too, running the entertainment at the casino, and I think we met when I was moderating the panel, right? As
the touring panel.
Because I was on the board of governors. That's another thing too. Both of us at different times have been on the board of governors for the DC. Grammy chapter. So if you are any artists in here that are in DC that are interested in moving their career forward, consider joining the Recording Academy, because it really is a great networking opportunity for you, or even in LA out here. I let my membership lapse out here in LA because interestingly enough, they do way fewer events out here than they did in DC. And so I let my, and I would
love to take you back. We'll take you back even by coastal.
That's what's up. Well, thanks so much, Anchi. I really appreciate it, and be safe, and you guys hang in there, and we shall get through this, my friend.
All right. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and I appreciate you. And congrats on this. This is awesome, and we will get through this together.
Awesome. Thanks so much. I'll talk to you soon, and I'll send you info about that live stream thing too.
All right. Sounds good.
All right.
Thank
Have a
you.
good one. Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Bye, guys.